What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful start of your weekend. You know the drill. If you're going out, don't drink and drive. Be safe. Take an Uber. Okay, so I've been waiting for a while to hear more in these days from Jim Semivan, who's the CIA, retired CIA former operative, who is a great deal responsible for everything that's been going on since 2017. If I'm not mistaken, although the 2017 article was like the fuse that lit the match in everything we've been experiencing since then, in terms of the disclosure movement and everything, that was Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal coming out with the article on those three military videos about Louis Elizondo and the ATIP program and all that. However, I do think that the main person who has been pushing for this to happen, for the whole disclosure movement to happen, is Jim Semivan. And I'll tell you why. Because of the experiences he had. He has been very vocal about the contact experience that he had in his house with his wife as well. His wife also experienced it. And being a CIA officer who basically had the rank of a general, but in the CIA, that was more than enough for him to start pushing for this to come out. And every time we see him speaking in public, he's always advocating for disclosure. And sometimes his messaging can be a little confusing because, based on the experiences he suffered, and I say suffered because they were negative experiences according to him, based on those experiences, you could easily argue that he looks at this as a threat narrative. And I don't think that necessarily is the case. I think that people like him who have had these traumatic contact or abduction experiences, people even with implants and all that, they did suffer something traumatic. So they're being human, they're being reactive to that, they're being instinctual. So I think that's where it comes from. And it's more of a precaution kind of attitude that they take towards this phenomenon based on their experiences. But a lot of them will tell you that they also acknowledge that there's a lot of people that report overwhelmingly positive experiences too, i.e., Chris Bledsoe. And Semivan has been very close to Chris Bledsoe, trying to understand his experience for years. So, yeah, Semivan became a friend of Bledsoe's. There's also the other side, like the more militaristic side, that does look at this as a competition for technology and a threat narrative and all that. That also exists within this space. But in Semivan's case, there's an urgency that he always tries to relay in his messaging to get this stuff out to the public. And I happen to agree with him in there. But he's very cryptic also whenever he talks about all of this. And he's got a couple of really good podcasts with Tom DeLonge and the To the Stars Media podcast, where he talks about this. He seems to have been very heavily involved in all three Secret Machines books, the nonfiction ones with Peter Levenda and Tom DeLonge. I don't know how involved he was on the fiction ones with AJ Hartley and Tom DeLonge, but I do know that he's been one of the main sources of information because he does know a lot of what's going on. And in the most recent Engaging the Phenomenon with James Iandoli, Jim Semivan did spill out a bit more than he usually does. I don't know if he did it on purpose, but there was a moment in the final clip that I'm going to show you guys where he just tells James, let it go, because he may have slipped a little bit. And you guys already saw the thumbnail and the title, but I'm going to take you through a few clips where he talks about this stuff. One is how he regards these entities that he came in contact with. And these align a lot with the shadow beings that James Iandoli himself told me that he saw in his experiences. So this is what Semivan said.
But it was very real once again. And But I wasn't afraid. This time I wasn't afraid. I just looked at it. It looked at me, and and it was a messenger. When I talked to, I think, Colin Kelleher about it, he said it was a messenger. It was a messenger. So anyway, I didn't want to. I don't.
What did he mean by messenger? Just
there are certain beings. I don't know whether they're elementals or how you'd want to describe them. They generally look. You ever see the Harry Potter films? You know what the Death Eaters look like?
Okay, yeah.
Imagine a Death Eater, but not a bad one. All right, it's just sort of a neutral one. And imagine the bottom part cut off, and all you see is the shroud, right? That little shroud, and a black. It's always in black, and then you look at the face, and there is no face. They tend to show up. They don't say anything most of the time, but they tend to show up when there's a something they want to alert you to something that's happening or going to happen. That's the lore, right? I don't know if this is true or not.
Yeah. So as a Harry Potter nerd, that resonates with me. And the fact is, he said they're not bad ones. I don't know how he would know that. Maybe because they didn't physically hurt him in any way. I don't know. That's just me thinking out loud. But yeah, that's part of his experience. There are other things that he mentioned that I found really interesting. One of them has to do with some of the investigations that I've been doing with Grimberg and the potential secret psychic spy program, which is really interesting to me. And I'm going to show it to you guys right now. See what he says.
For a long time. And what they're interested in. And, they're PhDs, they're MDs, some of them have 2 PhDs, and, very well versed in this, involved in really, unusual government programs that are out there. And you wouldn't believe how many there are. And it would, I remember getting briefed on a couple of them when I was at the agency. I was going, I don't want to know anymore. I mean, it's too strange. I mean, the stuff that goes on. And
the UFO or consciousness stuff?
Not UFO. I would say psychic stuff. Also, extremely strange technologies that you would think, wouldn't exist, that they do.
That we have.
Yeah.
And we developed.
Yeah, we developed, or the Russians developed over years, but mostly us.
That's wild. I just keep going back to that Ecosystemics Futures podcast where Dr. Hal Puthoff did say that pretty much every single topic that has been stigmatized more than likely has a secret program from the government running right now. And this includes everything. Like when he talks about weird technology, I'm talking like designer drugs kind of stuff, psychedelic research, real ancient history, ancient technology, all of that stuff. I would say that it is possible that whatever Jim Semivan was told has something to do with that too. And the psychic stuff is obviously everything to do with Stargate, MK Ultra, and whatever Jacobo was helping them out with. And also Dr. Itzhak Bentov, and right now there's other people, Dr. Ed May, and Puthoff himself, Russell Tarek, Andrea Puharic. They all contributed to this psychic program stuff, all of them. The other clip I'm going to show you guys is just 2 more. One is an update from Jim Semivan about age of disclosure and how surprised he was at some of the things that were said there. And ever since the movie came out, I've already spoken to a couple of people who saw the movie, but they were very adamant that they didn't want to reveal anything that was said there. And none of them has told me anything, and they are not telling anybody. And now that Jim Semivan says this about the movie, it does make me think that some of the stuff that was said was not supposed to be told, and it did. And just look at his reaction and his body language. So here's Jim Semivan talking about age of disclosure and his impression of what was said and the movie.
The Age of Disclosure, that documentary that's going to be coming out, hopefully soon. It's still being, the distribution still being figured out. You're going to see some really highly unusual things being said that I thought would never be said in any documentary from people in the know. Matter of fact, there was a couple times during the premiere when I was in Austin at South by Southwest when I saw it. I actually put my hands over my eyes. I couldn't believe things that were being said. I was like, holy shit, you shouldn't say that. You know? But
Yeah.
they did. And it's like, okay.
So now I want to see it even more, because if this guy who effectively caused this entire thing alongside Tom DeLonge, this entire disclosure movement, is saying that, so maybe there's something to it. The last clip I'm going to show you, it has to do with this. Whatever he saw firsthand, he kind of mentions it and then realizes that he slips up. Then he just tells James to let it go. And it was pretty clear. I mean, just check it out for yourselves.
When you get down, I mean, if you talk to Hal Putoff, or you talk to some of the other people involved, they were, you know, involved in OSAP and ATIP, and they will tell you flat out, yeah, we have down craft. And yes, we have bodies. I've seen pictures. So I'm a believer.
Did you hear that? And then look at his body language and James's reaction.
That we do, you know, never physically touched them myself, but
You've seen pictures of like a down craft?
yeah, craft. I just let that go.
Craft, not downed craft. Craft. Potentially, presumably hovering or flying, or I don't know. Look at James.
So when you get down,
Yeah, he slipped. Definitely slipped. And this has been happening for a little while, hasn't it? These slips. Seems like there seems to be some kind of level of urgency to get this out. It's along the lines of what we've been talking about this past week. I just can't really know for sure, put my finger on what this urgency is about. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of theories. I don't know what I'm inclined to believe, but maybe none of it is going to happen, really. And it's really hard to say. But I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think that's about? Why do you think Jim Semivan kind of slipped and then took a step back? Why do you think that happened? What do you think about his description of the Death Eaters, his comparison of those? What do you think about his update from Age of Disclosure? What do you think was said there that surprised someone like Jim Semivan? Let me know in the comments. Jim did record an episode on the Soul Foundation, but they haven't released it yet. I don't know what he's going to talk about, but whenever he comes out, if there's something worth covering, I will definitely cover it. So be on the lookout for that. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you get notified when a new video drops. That costs you nothing, only a few seconds, and that is what helps us the most. So thank you. But if you want to help us in any other way, there's a few links in the description. You can also become a member on YouTube, or you can support us through KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated. So thank you for the support. And that's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive always. Have a great weekend, y'all. Bye.